Okay, so now and again I touch on different races and how there are different standards between races for what appears normal for men and women. And so I've noticed that in a lot of East Asian television there are a lot of biological males and females. And so I just wanted to point out some that are quite obvious to me. Now, a lot of people find East Asian people trickier because East Asians as a race typically don't have much body hair, and that extends to the males. They don't typically have much facial hair. A lot of East Asian men also will have wider hips as well, and as East Asian people are typically quite slight, typically have pretty slight bone structures, a lot of people will get confused seeing that the men have what they perceive to be feminine hands. But if you compare the males and the females in the region to each other, you'll see that the males have more prominent features in all regards than the females, and it's important to compare people of the same race. And I'm going to show you a biological male in Korean television and a biological female as well. So I've picked some people who have some facial and bodily traits that are a little more similar to some Caucasian traits compared to some types of East Asians, because there's quite a lot of diversity in in Asia there's loads of diversity, but in East Asia there's also quite a lot, and there's a few different sort of distinct facial types. I find that there are some like this, that the face doesn't have many flat planes. Some people from East Asia will have a much more kind of flat appearance to the face, and then there's also a few types that have very, very strong kind of broad facial bones and such, but this one I think will be quite easy for people to recognize, as it kind of tends more toward what's familiar as a Caucasian kind of facial type. So this guy does definitely have prominent cheekbones, and he does have a strong jawline as well. Now typically on East Asians they'll have fuller lips than you'd expect on Caucasians, and Koreans in particular usually have quite full lips, so the important thing is the broadness of the mouth, which again, in East Asians often the mouth will be broader than you'd expect in a Caucasian, even on a female, but this is looking correct for a male. He does have quite large eyes, which, because males will have higher brow ridges, as I've mentioned before, typically this will mean that the skin above the eye is held a little bit tighter. So he has an uneven, he has one monolid and one double eyelid, so you can tell it's not been done by surgery, and I would say it's a result of having a more pronounced brow ridge compared to typically what a female would have of his same genetic stock. He doesn't have a very large ear. His nose is quite broad and there's a fair gap between the nose and the mouth. The facial length is quite long overall. He's got a sloping brow. Again, on East Asian men, you won't really have the same kind of appearance of the shape jutting out for the brow ridge, but there is that slope to the brow. The photo has been softened out overall, as that's a kind of visual look they like over there. But you can still see we've got the Adam's apple here, a quite strong looking facial structure overall. Does have a male looking kind of hairline. And, suits always have shoulder pads in them, but the shoulders look quite broad. Here you can tell that he's got a male arm length. The crotch level reaches to the wrist bone. He's definitely got male shoulder width. Again, I've mentioned that a lot of East Asian men will have kind of wider hips than you'd expect on a Caucasian. This guy has very obviously male dimensions in that the shoulder bones, which look like they're about here, are definitely wider than where the hip bones and pelvis are. The shape of the shoulders is very square. He's got very strong and long facial structure. He's definitely got a male digit ratio. You can see there's a bit of a sort of a half triangle shape here, which is probably supposed to evoke images of the pyramid in your mind and the one eye symbolism. So it does seem like they use a lot of Illuminati or Freemason, or whatever you want to call the people who are up there in the elite. It does seem like they use a lot of that symbolism in East Asia, but the fact is they seem to be using a lot of biological males and females as their actors. I've definitely seen gender-inverted people in the music industry, and a few in acting as well, But I'm just pointing out that just because people are doing symbols doesn't mean they're personally transgendered. What it means is that whoever is dictating what is going to be happening in the picture, the project manager, the photographer, the agent, I don't know, anyone who's deciding what they want the final picture to look like for publicity and for the image of the actor, the image of the agency, the whole industry. If they're in the Illuminati, whoever's making that call is going to design the photos like this. It doesn't mean that every actor who's making specific symbols is part of a cult or is transgendered. We can't actually know any of that for certain because we can't read minds. But it's interesting to look at anyway. And my main reason for this shot was the digit ratio, which is definitely male. This guy's got a very male-looking neck with male trachea, Adam's apple, and everything. He's got the kind of facial hair shadow that is correct for his race. Looks like he's got quite long arms. Again, East Asian people typically don't have a lot of body hair, so you're not even gonna really see much hair on the arms on men. But you can tell he's got a broad chest, and he's got narrow hips and wide shoulders, and his bone structure is quite defined. It just looks like regular kind of male definition to the limbs and everything. And a lot of times Asian men will have hands that look a bit smaller than what you'd expect on Caucasians, but compared to female hands from the same region, he's got sturdier hands, it's kind of strong knuckles, kind of thin appearance between the knuckles, very male-looking hand. He's got the jutting kind of collarbone things that I often notice on real men and on male to female transgenders. The top of the Adonis belt. Again, this muscle here is the oblique muscle, and the hips actually don't go out wide after that point. And looking like very kind of straight, lean male legs. The shape of the pectorals doesn't look strange. And the length of the neck is quite long, very square, broad shoulders, and hanging straight arms. And again, the male facial traits, kind of sharpness to the facial dimensions, which are quite strong. But again, you don't see the same really sloping brow and pronounced brow ridge as you see in the Caucasian race. So yeah, you can see he's got a totally male back. This guy was actually on the national Korean swim team before he got into acting, and so that suggests that there are definitely some non-transgendered athletes, at least in that region of the world. Again, you've got this strong, pronounced bone structure, the long arms. Actually, some East Asians that I've seen in my life, they do have arms that look shorter than what you'd expect for Caucasians. It's typically, that type of East Asian will have a long torso and kind of short limbs. But this guy has, he's got the long limbs look, and this is one of the kind of types that you've got in Asia. There's a few different types, and again, oblique muscles that stick out, but he's got a broad rib cage and narrow hips, and male-looking musculature down here on the legs and up here. Again, the fingers are bent a little bit, but you can tell the ring finger is longer than the index finger, and got the kind of strong knuckles look that is completely consistent with the male hand from the region. And again, the stronger facial structure compared to what you'd see of a girl with the same genetic material. Totally straight male body line. The Q angle is definitely male. There's no curving or anything going on here. Again, there's the slope to the brow, just not a pronounced brow ridge, the same way you see on Caucasians. Okay, so here we have Bang Sung-hoon, who is our example of a male from this region of the world. And this is Kim So-eun, who is a biological female. I picked these two because they look like they have kind of similar genetic background, and also don't look like they've had facial surgery done. So she's got definite female softness to the cheeks, female-looking lip shape, small gap between the nose and the mouth, forehead that's not overlong. Sometimes you'll see really long foreheads on East Asian women, but hers is actually quite short. She's got a kind of delicate chin, comes to a point. Small-looking ear, nothing strange in the neck. Now, from her school pictures, you can tell that she really hasn't had plastic surgery work done. I mean, they could have potentially altered the school photos, but it has some slight nuances to it that just suggest that it's a younger photo of her, and it looks like this is a natural face that hasn't been worked on. The overall size of the nose, size of the lips, the shape of the face looks very female. A lot of times East Asians will have eyes that are spaced farther apart as well. This is consistent with the female appearance. There's no brow ridge, there's no jutting bones or anything. She doesn't have one of the very kind of flat, planed facial types, so she's got features that kind of stand out a little bit more, but at the same time you're not having any kind of male development like we saw with the fellow before. Another photo of her younger, again showing that this is a very natural looking face. If she's had any work done, then possibly there was just some refining of the nose, but the essential shape of the nose is still the same, and the actual facial structure, the bone and everything, hasn't been worked on. So you can see here that she's got a sloping shoulder as well. Now here is an example of a very typical South Korean facial surgery job. It looks basically like a porcelain doll. You've got double eyelid surgery to artificially create wider eyes with a defined eyelid rather than the monolid look that is quite common in Korea. There's definitely been V-line jaw surgery done here to shape down the overall size of the jaw. Looks like the shape of the mouth has been worked on as well, and there's definitely been a nose job. Potentially this person could have had the cheekbones shaped down as well. So I just wanted to show you this as a comparison to a face that hasn't had surgery work, and how much more natural you can tell that this face looks compared to the previous one. A lot of times Koreans will also have quite hefty skulls as well. If you look at the width of the shoulders, we definitely couldn't fit 3 skull sizes on the width of the shoulders. I also want to point out that when women are thin and they don't have as much body fat and muscle and everything bulking up the shoulders, the heads will look bigger. You'll often see this look on really skinny women in real life, and particularly on women who are really thin for health reasons or whatever. You'll notice that in particular. With her, she's slim and she has a slight frame, so you can expect the head might look a little bit large. Essentially, we have a very female slope here. This isn't built up muscle, you can tell because there's softness all around here. There's nothing strange in the neck. Delicate female looking bone structure. You can tell there's a proper curve down here in the waist. Again, the female softness to the face. She's got a fairly strong facial structure, similar to the guy from before, but there's the essential softness to it that indicates it's very female. Female-sized ear as well. Definitely a female Q angle here, and a female digit ratio as well. Short arms, small torso, and female waist indentation. Hips that continually curve downward. Again, East Asian figures are not identical to Caucasian figures, but I guarantee this is a perfectly natural East Asian woman. In fact, she's actually a lot curvier than a lot of women I've seen from that region. The knees are looking female. She just got essential female softness all over. She doesn't have a broad dental arch. Again, the eyes aren't too wide set. They match with the width of her face overall. I don't want to omit anything when I make these videos, so if I find photos like this, I'll just include them, because people care about the symbolism. But I just want to say, if you're at all familiar with East Asian culture, I'd like you to find anyone from that region of the world who doesn't throw this symbol when they're taking pictures, because I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't. It's a very cultural thing over there. And, you know, maybe the one-eye thing, maybe the winking is a kind of reference to Illuminati or something. Maybe she's just winking, you know. Maybe all of these people are part of a secret organization. Maybe they're owned by people who instruct them to do specific things when they take photos and, you know, in regular life. Or maybe it's just coincidental and they're just posing in popular ways. Here, again from another angle, you can see she's got very proper looking female curves. Here. The plastic surgery in this region, they don't really do contouring to the hips and body. Typically they'll just have really skinny girls and then kind of stick some implants on the front. But this looks like a very natural female hip shape, thigh shape. The legs look totally female, the knees look totally female. She's got delicate female joints, softness to the upper arm. Like, this is very, very obviously a girl. And I have no idea who this next to her is, but he's looking very obviously male as well. The square shoulders, the Adam's apple, the long neck, the larger ear, the stronger facial structure, the much longer torso in comparison to the length of hers, the straighter male legs, the definition to the forearms, the bigger hands. This is very obviously a man and a woman right here. Again, she's just got this essential female softness to the face, both younger and older. She's got a female shape to the forehead. I'm not actually sure if the chest is natural or not. What's interesting about a lot of women in this region of the world is you won't find any really suggestive photos of them. You won't find bikini shots and everything. And you could say that's suspicious because you can't transvesticate it as well. But I think that's part of the more traditional conservative morals that still exist in South Korea and China. It's changing with the younger generations, but essentially they still prefer women to be modest overall. In this shot you can see that she's got a female curve to the back. Again, loose clothing, more modest than you find on a lot of women in the West. Again, the female Q angle, you can tell it's structural, it's bone, it's not contoured fat stuck on or anything. You can tell there's actually a curve to the legs at the skeletal level, and you typically just don't find that kind of curve in males. She's definitely got short arms, a shorter torso in comparison to the legs, and here again the female digit ratio, small feminine hands with delicate tapered fingers, like the man we looked at earlier who had more pronounced knuckles and a larger overall appearance to the hands. And again here you can see she's definitely got a curve to the upper back and a curve to the lower back. This is a skeletal curve that you will not find on a man. It's the dual curve of a female back. She's got the elegant gradual curves of a female all over, and a very feminine looking face. Again, she's got a female digit ratio. When the fingers are held farther apart, it's harder to tell, but that is what I've observed on this person. And again, the female Q angle, the broad female hips in comparison to the shoulders. You check where the shoulder bones would be up here and bring them down. It's equal to the hips or possibly a little smaller than the hips. And as for the crotch level in comparison to the arm, you can see that she's clearly got female arm length, and the arms are angling out at the shoulder as well to accommodate these wider hips. She's got a very delicate looking bone structure. Her hands are not too big in comparison to her face. She's got a smoothness to the joints that looks very female. Again, the female curve to the hips, the female arm length, the female curve to the thighs, gradual female curves on the legs here, small looking female feet, and the energy in the eyes is definitely female. That's a gentle glow. It's not a radiant burn. And if we look between these pairs of eyes, there's a fierceness here, but there isn't here. So there you have it, a presentation of a real female and a real male in the Korean media. And that's that.